So, for those of you who do not know Dakota, Rachel and I met Dakota. Gosh, Dakota, how many years has it been? 3 years?
It'll be 2 years, mid-September. So coming up on that 2-year anniversary.
Wow, it feels like we've known you forever. So Dakota actually came in for an interview for our inspector position. So for any of you guys that have loans out, you may have met Dakota back in the day. He would drive around and check out houses and take some pictures. And Dakota is super talented. So Dakota quickly got promoted from our inspector position to education. And Dakota worked for Faster Freedom for quite a while, for a year and a half, or almost 2 years.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
just recently, Dakota made the switch from Faster Freedom to work for Faster House as a buyer. So Dakota is now out talking to sellers, trying to buy deals, both wholesalers, direct to seller stuff. And over the years, Dakota's also built up a rental portfolio and done some flips. So today, Dakota's
Yeah,
going to share his most recent flip that has a lot of funny stories tied to it.
yes, yes. Awesome. Can everyone hear me okay? My connection all right? Everything seemed to be good? Okay. Well, cool. Awesome. Let me try and share my screen here and see what happens.
You did it.
Everyone with me?
Yep.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So yeah, thank you for that. So my name is Dakota, and I just started working with Faster House as an acquisition manager, like Suzanne was saying. So super excited about the position. I definitely feel like it's one of those positions that comes with its own challenges and its own day-to-day grind. But I'm excited for the challenge, and I'm excited to be a part of the community. So I came from Faster Freedom, like Suzanne was saying. And that was really an awesome opportunity for me to kind of work hand in hand with Sam Prim and understand the education space and kind of have an impact on helping other people get their first properties and start coming around to the idea of real estate investing and the freedom that that offers. Um, the one thing about the position that I've come to be saying around the office was you have a huge impact. You put out a post that gets millions and millions of views, so you're getting tons of eyeballs, but no eye contact. So for me, that was huge, just being able to have like face-to-face conversations with people, that relationship building, and really just kind of figuring out how people tick and how I can add value in their lives. So I think this new position is definitely going to help me achieve that. And yeah, I was super appreciative for the opportunity to hop on here and kind of go through the journey here. So this 1205 Saint Francis or Saint Francois, as I've come to learn, is the most recent flip that we did. And it's the one that I picked because it was um, in the right direction of where I want to see my personal business and the system and processes that I've learned thus far. So within the last year and a half, me and my fiance Jess, we have gone through 6 different properties. So we are uh, in the middle of 2 rentals that we're going to be able to hold on to. We're in the midterm space, so we target traveling professionals, nurses, people that got placed out of their home due to some type of disaster of some sort. So that's kind of our niche of being able to meet real estate with hospitality, and that customer service has to kind of shine through, but not to the highest regard of someone's vacation is on the line, right, and everything needs to be perfect, 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 right? They saved up all year to go on this vacation. So that's not the pressure that I'm under. So I really enjoy the midterm space, but so we've gone through those with the rentals, and we've also accomplished a few flips along the way, and that's been huge as far as the strategy of kind of um, being able to get some flips under your belt and, kind of pad your pockets and have some wiggle room to kind of have those oh crap moments that all come up with real estate transactions, right? So um, I found a happy balance in being able to do some flips and add to my portfolio along the way. So I would like to show you some before pictures of this Saint Francois. This is up north for us. It's up in Florissant. It is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath home. Let me see if I can click on one of these and get a
Dakota,
little better view here.
are you
Yeah,
trying to show us pictures? We,
yeah. Is it not showing on your end?
no, we're just
If
seeing your slide still.
if you just unshare the screen, Dakota, and reshare, just make sure you hit share whole screen.
All right. So I'm going to go new share, Google Photos. Bum, bum, bum. How about now?
There
Yep.
you go.
There they are. Perfect. All right. So this house was pretty what we kind of call grandma clean, right? So everything is in working order. Nothing is too horribly disgusting. We had some other investors kind of walk the house when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do with it, and other people were saying that they were just going to clean it up and throw it on Section 8. It's got 3 bedrooms, so Section 8 kind of has like a pay scale how they come up with the different bedrooms to equivalate into a price. Um, so that, I mean, there was definitely different options with this, right? So like with any type of real estate transaction, you want to make sure you have as many options as possible, whether you can wholesale it, flip it, keep it as a rental, clean and list, all the different tools that we have in our tool belt. So I'm kind of gonna just go through these pictures here and let you see that we had a pretty large size kitchen mixed with like a dining room area. Um, some outdated flooring throughout the house. Um, excuse me. All of our bedrooms are upstairs. We had a half bath there. Um, pretty dated. The hardwood floors were nice, but they weren't very consistent throughout the house. So as much as it pained me, we went ahead and covered those up with LVP, but we'll get to that in a second. Nice large hall bathroom for everybody. That is actually the real dining room, the dining room that was just outside of the kitchen. You can make an argument to, count that other side as a dining room, but I mean, this one already had it all set up. There wasn't a whole lot of options to turn this into another bedroom or anything like that, but it was nice to kind of work through that as well, to see all the different options we had. The basement was finished, but again, pretty dated. Had a nice big bar back there and a full bathroom downstairs as well, actually. So kind of a nice living space down there to be able to, throw some kids down there with some toys and let them destroy that area while you have your nice spot upstairs, or a nice man cave, or whatever the buyer would want to turn that into. They had options there. Outside was actually pretty clean. The fence was in good working order until a unexperienced driver decided to drive through the fence, but we'll get through that here in a minute. Brian reminded me of that. But all the siding was good. Gutters were pretty good. You can see a gutter on the ground there that we just had to throw back up. Some downspouts, but the one thing, or the biggest thing we had to do outside, was add a driveway. So we did an asphalt layover on the driveway. But as you can see, it's a pretty cute house, pretty clean house. It looks small from the street view, but it definitely opens up and is a great use of space. So just some updating on the outside there, and we were pretty well to move on inside and get things cooking. So let me see about getting back over to me, but then screen sharing the PowerPoints.
Dakota, you can actually just share all and then it'll seamlessly like kind of go back and forth between the presentation and so just click the very first box that you see.
Whoops.
There you go.
All good. We'll figure it out. Cool. So before pictures, yes. So how did I find this deal? This deal actually came from my electrician. It was his uncle's house. This was an electrician that I've used in the past on my personal house when I was berming into my own house, actually. Um, I met him, I would think, or you know what? I met him at Buyers Club. I met him at the Faster House Buyers Club. He handed me his card and said, "Hey, if you need anything, reach out. This, that, and the other." He's super awesome to work with. Um, was a great attention to detail and definitely made sure that everything was buttoned up properly before he left. So I really respected and liked working with him. And he knew what I was up to. He knew that I was um, acquiring properties and looking for that next deal. And when his uncle needed a place to go, the family was looking to sell that house. So he came to me with the house, and we kind of walked it together and tried to figure out what was the best move forward, whether they should clean and list it, whether they should be working with an agent. I try to be as fair as possible and really educate people in what their best move is, right? Sometimes working with an investor isn't the best move for them. I mean, if money is the big thing and convenience is, something they have wiggle room on, maybe they should be listing this house. And those are kind of the things we talked through and talked about. Um, when he was working with it, he has the bug to get into real estate as well. He is a licensed professional electrician, but he wanted to get into the world of project management and investing on the side and all that kind of stuff. So I actually hired him on as a project manager for one of my other houses. He did a great job bidding the project, but wasn't the best delegator, which is obviously a huge part of project managing, right? So the project wound up taking a lot longer than anticipated. Not this property here, but the other one that I hired him on as a project manager for. So everything worked out number wise on my end. It wasn't a very profitable transaction on his end, how long that it took and the time and energy he had to put into it. So when this house came along, I wanted to try and figure out how we could make money together, and kind of nurture that relationship, right? Because he's very active in the community. He comes to the buyers clubs. He's an all around good guy. So I wanted to make sure that I was putting out good things into the world as well. So we came to this agreement that we were going to purchase the price of $80,000 from his uncle, and that it was going to be able to be purchased at that lower price because it's going to be a transaction that he's in on. So we kind of joint ventured on this project, and said that we were going to split the expenses, split the profit, and go in on this together. So after that purchase price went through, we started to reaching out to Faster Funds and had them walk the house with us, and Emily met me out there and kind of confirmed where my budget needed to be at and what she would recommend and this, that, and the other, and added her value, and that was incredible. So we initially thought that the house was going to appraise or be able to be sold for 185,000. The initial rehab was the 30,000 and purchase price 80, like I said. So this is kind of how the budget broke down. We had a clean out. We had to get some of that flooring out. So there wasn't a whole lot of junk in there, but there was a lot of different fixtures and cabinets and stuff like that. So we did a clean out in a hallway. We had the flooring that was going to need to be done upstairs and down. We're painting the entire house upstairs and down. Drywall repairs was pretty minimal. Exterior, again, like I was saying, was pretty minimal, but the big ticket item was that asphalt layover. Bathrooms, being that there was 3 bathrooms, that was a higher ticket item for us to do correctly. Um, Basement, we wrapped up all those numbers. There wasn't anything super special in the basement, other than just to paint the floors in the bathroom down there. HVAC was in good system. Water heaters were in good system. The panel was outdated. It had those old school, what are they, like the little fuse knobs on them, the colored fuse knobs. So um, another benefit of Devin being a licensed electrician, he was able to come out and kind of do the at cost for us to make sure we kept that rehab budget down, and just to make sure that we're both, had skin in the game and that we're both chugging in the right direction. Plumbing, we were fine. We had good looking stacks. The garage needed minimal buttoning up. It was mostly, there was actually a bathroom out there as well, that was just going to cause us more headache than it was worth. So we decided to cap that off. It had a power ran out there, so we had to make sure everything was, GFCI'd and all that kind of good stuff. No deck, no patio to worry about, but miscellaneous, we went ahead and put $2,000 just because there's always something. And the interesting part of this journey so far, this was my first time working with a professional project management team, which I highly, highly recommend. Um, Really just knowing yourself, right? Staying in your own genius zone and knowing that if you have the time and the skill set to delegate and come up with time blocks and make sure you're hiring the right people at the right time, and not screwing yourself over on any type of inspections, or having guys working on top of each other. I mean, if that is your skill set, you can definitely save a couple bucks doing that, But me personally, I was holding down a full-time job, as well as, I really was trying to gear up into this direction to where it's a more scalable process for me. In the past, I was the one doing the work myself, constantly YouTubing. How the heck do I, mud and tape a wall, and why is there this, and what is this, and blah blah blah. And then it was the re-YouTubing of, okay, I did it wrong. How do I fix it? So after it was all said and done, it was costing me more money and time, energy, and effort to do the things myself rather than just trying to delegate it and lean on the professionals. Would rather do the deal than not. That was another thing that kind of came up when it was me and Devin trying to figure out what to do with his uncle's house. He had other options. He was able to, go to another investor and essentially wholesale his uncle's house to another investor, and he could pocket 25 grand, and that was definitely an option for him. But I was able to kind of work out to where it wouldn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense at that 185 ARV to overpay what other investors were apparently willing to pay. So that's when I, started working with Devin to see how we can joint venture on this. And it was a lot better to have 50% of a deal than let the deal and potentially the relationship dwindle. So I was willing to take a 50% cut of the profits just to make sure that the deal got done, that he was profitable, I was profitable, and that we can kind of nurture that relationship. Um, I'm really excited to show you guys these final photos. So let me see if it's. Let's share the screen on these new photos here. Shot by JJ. Shout out to Jaden Jeffrey Jones. He is our in-house editor for Faster Freedom, and he absolutely crushed these photos. So the power of young minds and AI, right? So these flower beds, he was actually able to type into a computer, clean up flower beds, and put spring flowers, and it literally mulched the flower bed and added flowers into the picture. So the final pictures Actually, we're buttoned up a little bit more, but it's really incredible how we did these photos. You can actually see the bowling alley back over there on the left. If you guys follow Brian, you know that that's one of his favorite connectors, or one of his favorite stories to tell is how he's got a bowling alley connector that he's got a We Buy Houses sign at. So let's take a look at some of these. So it cleaned up nicely. We got those awnings down. Roof was in good enough shape. We got that new power line on the side there, or new meter out. Did a little, not much. Didn't really need too much touch-up paints. Just did some cleaning of any miscellaneous junk. Looks like there was some additional clean out after the asphalt was laid, so a little debris on there, but nice big detached garage, huge yard. So apparently someone was leaving the bowling alley and decided to bend this fence and basically run over the fence. And this was as we're in the midst of closing, as we're in the midst of all of our inspections and everything like that. And I mean, that was the last thing that I expected, was to have someone drive over and through the fence. So just another props of having an incredible professional project management team that has the resources and cares enough to make sure that you get to the closing table on time. Couple more exterior photos, and now we're inside. Nice investor special with some agreeable gray, some nice gray tone LVP throughout. Windows were in good conditions. We were able to salvage those vinyl windows. Nice hallway. So now we have our a bedroom, living room, or I'm sorry, the hall, bath. That is, I believe, the dining room, and then the living room. A couple of bedrooms, all new doors, hardware. Or actually, I believe these doors were painted, if my memory serves me. Those were all original, but new light fixtures, new baseboards. If you guys don't know about these alcove tub surrounds, these are awesome. In person, they look like real tile. You can actually throw grout in between those tiles to give it a little bit more of a feel, or if you wanted, black grout to, give it that more high-end look. They look incredible, but they're super easy to install, and your contractors will thank you. Those are lifesavers. Kitchen. So super thankful for the project manager to kind of help me come up with the layout of this kitchen. So before, we had the refrigerator off to the left-hand corner in that little cubby, but now we have like a little writer's area. Beautiful tile for the backsplash. Everyone loves their white cabinets. I needed some wood tones in there, so I was able to convince the project manager to throw some butcher's block on there. I think it really helped it all pop. Got nice stainless appliances, and I think it turned out great. Nice big space. Also have that dining room off to behind you on this camera view. You got your primary bedroom here with a primary bath. Then we'll probably head on downstairs here in a moment. All right, so we were able to pretty much spray everything down, just add the floors, and the paint go a really long way. This is the room that had the bar right here, and then there was also like a fake fireplace right here. So that turned out really well. Nice open space. The drop ceiling was salvageable. We just sprayed that, made it look nice and fresh. And this is the downstairs bathroom. And I believe, yeah, that is going to be it for the picture. So this guy worked out really well as far as the finished project, the finished everything turned out well. I was super happy with it. Can you guys see me again back over here?
You want to stop the share so we can see the real you?
Yep.
Yes. Do you guys see me now?
There you go.
Yes.
There I am. Perfect. All right. So let me grab this presentation back up here just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So how did we do? Final numbers. So final rehab cost, we got up to that 35,000 points, maybe just over. So our all-in cost, we were at 80,000 for purchase price, 35 for rehab, and we wound up spending $7,000 on the holding cost. But after 2 days on the market, we had an offer at $210,000. So this was an
Crazy.
awesome slam dunk. This was due to a number of different things that I'll get into here in a second. But I think it just goes to show if you add a little, character, whether it's in the kitchen or whether it's, just making it somewhere someone wants to live and doesn't have to live, that's where you're going to really be able to drive up that price. And I put 90,000 profits. JV, because that was the agreed upon that we were going to split all these expenses and split the profit. So, like I said, it was a deal that maybe wouldn't have gone through had I not brought him in on that deal. Maybe he would have just taken his quick 25 grand, moved on to the next investor. But being that he was able to, go in on this project with me and rock with me, we were able to split a heftier profit. So,
So you each
super
made
happy with the
45
result.
grand.
So we each got $45,000 after it was all said and done. Yes, ma'am.
That is pretty.
Lessons learned, if I may go into this. Leaning on professionals is one of the biggest things that I found as far as being able to make this a scalable process. So leaning on your professionals, whether it's your lender, if you have a lender that's worth a damn, they're going to go out to the house with you. Make sure that you're not bumping your head on, this and that or whatever, or hey, you didn't really think about this, or I really think you can maximize profit by just throwing up a wall right here and adding a whole nother bedroom or whatever that looks like. Leaning on someone that has grouped the path before you. Professional photos, if you're going to spend all this money on making it look nice, make sure that you're making the thumbnail or the presentation of this property on the MLS somewhere someone is excited to go see the house. Realtors, a thought in this process was, oh well, I have a couple of months until this thing is done. Maybe I'll go get my real estate license and I'll just save a couple more grand on commissions. Where that might be an option later down the road. It just really didn't make sense for me at this point. Being that I already had enough things juggling in my life that I was able to lean on that realtor to negotiate the best price, to work through all the different contract talk and everything like that. Of course, your project managers, really, really leaning on the professionals, right? Also, a lesson learned is FHA loans can be tough on the final stretch. With an FHA loan, as a lot of you probably know that I didn't know, they go through another series of inspections just to make sure that the bank feels super confident that everything is buttoned up for this first-time home buyer, and they kind of go through a little bit more of a process and a stricter expectation of quality, I guess. So that wasn't anything earth-shattering, but it was kind of one of those things of it's another inspection that has to go through. It's another person you have to please. It's another inspector you have to build a relationship with and make them feel confident in the transaction as well if they're going to put their stamp of approval on it. So just something to be aware of. FHA loans I think is great to empower someone to have an FHA loan, get that low percentage down. Get them into a house where they can start building equity and their family can have the benefits of owning real estate as well. So wasn't afraid of the FHA, but it is something to be conscious of if you're running against the timeline there. So look at how many houses are for sale in the area. I think that was one of our better strategies when I was looking at this house of, okay, how many houses are for sale in the area? Not only comps for comparables, but comps for competition, right? How can I be the best house on the market at the best price? And at the time of listing, we were really the only one in this little pocket of area, kind of bordered by a couple of different highways and main streets. So if you wanted to be in this little area, we were really your only turnkey choice. So that was one of the I think benefits to our listing strategy and when we listed and where we wanted to invest this time and efforts and energy. Connectors are powerful. So this one came from an electrician. I've gotten deals from Facebook handymen. I've gotten deals from wholesalers, and then that same wholesaler brings me another house and another house. I added bowling alley for Mr. Schroeder there, but you never know where that next deal is going to come from. So just getting your word out, saying your truth and telling everyone what you do and how you do it and why you do it, right? So connectors are super powerful, and I think this is just a prime example of that. So I think that is the end of the slide there. Let me get back somewhere.
Dakota, you're back to the whole screen, so that's perfect.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I appreciate you guys rocking with me. Yes, this house is in 63031 in Florissant. Probably like in my opinion, probably the better part of Florissant. Not that Florissant's all that bad, but you have a lot of amenities in that little pocket. So
You are right by my favorite coffee shop and bakery made by Leah over there that I love. So if you guys are in Florissant,
you can always lean on
shout out to
Suzanne for a good. Yeah, you can always lean on Suzanne for a good coffee recommendation.
Yeah, Dakota, awesome presentation. So got several questions and love to follow up, but I also know Scott jumped on the call here too. So Scott kind of managed your project for a good part of the time there. And what you didn't really mention much was your inspection process and the challenges with that. So I thought it'd be kind of nice to let Scott follow up with your presentation. Just talk about that for just a little bit. You good with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason I didn't speak on it so much was because I didn't have to deal with this, which is a beautiful thing of having project management and hiring professionals to take that over. So yeah, I mean, I think that there was a lot of lessons learned in there for anyone, but thankfully I didn't have to learn those lessons. So no, I'm just playing.
Well said, Dakota. Holy smokes. And everybody does it differently, which is really cool. Some people are very hands off and some people are very hands on. But your role. Your role is to buy a hell of a deal and just making sure it gets done. And you did an awesome job with that part of the role. So anyway.
Yes,
good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to hear Scott's opinion on how that went.
Sure, I can give you my opinion.
Keep it PG, Scott.
Yeah, so just a little context. So I work for Greater STL Rentals, and we've changed a lot over the last 4 months. We had a really big turnover, and at the time when
Oh, Scott, you're cutting out on us. We can't hear you. Did we lose Scott?
Lost him right at the wrong time.
I know. I think he's back.
Okay. Is he?
Yeah, I see him on here. It looks like he's trying to maybe reconnect.
Hey, while we're waiting for him to come back, I always think about one of the things I think about you, Dakota, and maybe right or wrong, tell me if this is accurate, but I always think of you as a really stylish dude, someone that's really in tune with the trends and so forth. So what are your thoughts on the trends these days? I know you went with the amazing gray and the white, and you threw in a little butcher block you mentioned a little wood color in there, but What are your thoughts on the trends these days? Is that, and I guess second question with that is you didn't do staging, which a lot of people are, and a lot of people aren't. So I'd love your feedback on those two things.
Yes, absolutely. So that is one thing that I do actually really enjoy. I enjoy the color schemes and bringing things together and finding happy balances and just how something looks, right? I do appreciate my aesthetics, I'll say. So being able to kind of for this project specifically, it was really awesome to have the project management team kind of just come up and say, "Hey, do you want this one or this one?" You know, like that really kind of sped the process along, and I was able to, you know, say, "Okay, well, if I'm going with that color, I want to go with this flooring to emphasize this and all that kind of stuff." But at the end of the day, it's not all about what I want. It's going to be keeping the buyer in mind, right? Um, so with these midterm rentals, I get to kind of add my own little flair to them. Being that you are furnishing them, you are adding decoration, you're picking out, you know, everything that's in an Airbnb or everything that's in your house. So that is kind of where I get to flex my creativity and be able to, you know, bring a beautiful product that's in my image, right? Um, but at the end of the day, you know, everything doesn't have to be HGTV. You don't have to blow out walls and do these crazy exotic type of things. Just know your market, know where this house is, if it calls for that kind of stuff, right? Um, the furnishing was a hard call. It was one of those, should we spend the extra couple $1,000s on staging? Um, but I was also banking on the fact that I think this thing's going to get locked up in less than a week. Do I really need to spend all this money on staging if it's really only going to be there for a couple of showings, right? So that did wind up working out in our favor. And again, I made that decision based on the competition and being able to see who am I going up against in this, you know? So I felt pretty confident in our decision of skipping the staging on this one.
Thanks for sharing that. Scott,
Yeah.
welcome back.
I'm back. I don't know what happened. I talked for 2 seconds and my whole entire screen just shut down. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So anyway, like I started saying, we at 4 months ago when this project all started, we were doing outside renovations for other owners. And then midway through his project, our upper management just decided to leave the company, including our main project manager who was running this one. And I actually at the time was out working on smaller turnovers, work orders, things like that. And so I had already been in this house to actually work on it a little bit. So I was familiar with it. And so I took over the project manager role. And when I did, it was completed. For the most part, it was already under contract. So they were on a really strict timeline and it had to pass florist and occupancy inspection as part of the contract, as most regular normal sales do. So I did the occupancy inspection. I used to do these for a company all the time, so I was very familiar with the process. And I was not familiar with the inspector that I got, who was pretty much the inspector from hell. And this clean little house that would just looked amazing. He wrote me up for over 20 different items. And anytime I pushed back on him about any of it at all, he flew off the handle. And by the end of it, he was making me pull a permit for replacing kitchen cabinets. And so we didn't move, as you see in the before and after pictures, it's hard to tell, but we didn't move anything. We didn't move a single pipe. We didn't move a single outlet. We literally just pulled the cabinets out, put new ones right back in and hooked everything back up. And so when I pushed back on him on that, I was told that, well, because since you move cabinets, I have to assume that you did something to the plumbing or electrical and therefore you need a permit. And so the inspection didn't go real good. and we ended up having to pull a permit. Went over the inspector's head and talked to his supervisor. And the supervisor was much easier to deal with. But in the end, he said, well, if it's gotten to my desk, there's really no other alternative. You have to pull the permit. But he helped me through the permitting process. If you haven't done an occupancy inspection in Florissant recently, everything is online. There's no more calling the office for an inspection time and date. They simply assign it to you, their first one. And the one that I just did yesterday is 3 weeks out. However, I was talking to the supervisor and with the inspector, and I'm like, look, I really don't want this inspector again. And he says, well, I can't let you pick your inspector, but here's what you can do. They're going to assign you a date and time. And what you do is once you have your date and time, you just call in the office and ask who the inspector was that assigned it to you. And he said, you can't pick your inspector, but just ask to change the time or maybe a day later or something on your inspection, and it'll almost certainly give you another inspector. So that was one little tip that the supervisor gave me that's going to be helpful in the future that you can deal with. If you deal with
Oh no, are we gonna lose Scott again?
Not after all that gold. That was gold. That was awesome.
Oh, I think he's
Yeah,
back.
just change your date.
I am back. I don't know what is
Okay.
going on. Yeah, so we went through the inspector's process. What is the inspector's name? That's a great question. I don't know his name. Joe something, I believe. I can get that though. But yeah, so we went through the inspection process. Thankfully, the permitting process, that supervisor that runs the inspectors is also the plan reviewer for your permits. So that made it really easy, and he walked me through it. The process for the permit was literally just making a hand drawing. And I just marked out with measurements where everything was. I submitted it back to him. He approved the permit the same exact day. But I still had to go through all of the other occupancy inspection items. My favorite was, I don't know if you noticed in the pictures, but there's a very tiny shed in the far back corner of the yard. And on that shed, for whatever reason, they had put little fake out windows with plexiglass in them. On the back side of it, the plexiglass was broken, and he told me I had to replace the entire window. And there was no window. It was just a piece of plexiglass. So I just unscrewed it off the thing and went on about my way. But yeah, Florissant is really getting really strict and difficult to deal with. They're going off of the newest electrical codes. So in the kitchen, he had that little, I think he called it a writing nook or area off to the side that had cabinets and a countertop. So in the new electrical code, and this is something I actually didn't know, but I was arguing with the inspector about, anytime you have any countertop surface in the kitchen, if there is an outlet above that countertop, it must be GFI protected. And it does not matter if it's near water and near the sink, because that was always the thing, right? 6 feet or 3 feet around the sink, it had to be GFI protected. If it was under the sink for the disposal, always had to be. And that's how we had this kitchen set up. But there was an outlet above that little reading nook way far away, and we had to change that to a GFI. Thankfully, Dakota had his electrician that already had the permit pulled and everything for the panel, so that made it super easy. But everything just got accelerated on this because of the timeline, because obviously the buyers wanted to get in there, they wanted their house. Yes, Dave Var is also very difficult. I see that comment. Yes, he is sometimes. But yeah, I don't, it used to be you could kind of talk up the inspectors and if your place looked clean and nice and they weren't going to really hit you for much of anything. But in Florissant in particular, Florissant's right up there with Maryland Heights and U City for me now. I mean, they are that difficult to deal with. I'm having that much difficulty with them, but in the end, you just got to jump through all their hoops and do what they want to do. But I would say if you do run into a problem with an inspector, call the supervisor. He was much, much easier to deal with. And yeah, he would just don't be afraid to go over the inspector's head and fluorescent because the supervisor is so much easier to do. And I saw the text about the gumballs. Yeah, I had to I bagged up about 25 yard waste bags full of leaves out of Dakota's house because there were leaves on the backyard that we had to clean up. So I feel your pain on the gumballs. But yeah, so I
This
don't
is
know if
cool
you have any
stuff
other
I
questions.
didn't hear.
Awesome update, both Scott and Dakota. Really cool. One little last other little thing, and then we'll take a few questions real quick. Is this Dakota had this house sold, and then Scott did the occupancy inspection, and he had this issue, and it was like it took a fair amount of time. So Dakota and his agent were able to negotiate something with the buyer, which I thought was kind of cool, where the buyer actually closed before the inspection was passed. And they just threw a little bit of money in it, or the seller, Dakota, threw a little bit of money in an escrow account. So it didn't hold up his closing, which I thought was a really, I don't know, brilliant strategy. So you could get it closed and keep moving forward.
I feel like that's the benefit of having a good agent versus just like Dakota was speaking to earlier, just getting the license to save a few bucks. When you have an experienced agent who knows how to deal with investors, they can come up with good ideas like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to piggyback on that too. One of the buyer's agent, maybe you guys had heard of this, maybe you guys have used this in the past, but it was pretty genius in my opinion. So they offered a little bit more than everyone else in exchange for a credit on the back end that they were then going to use as their down payment. So they were able to wrap up, the entire mortgage loan in the form of a liquidized credit to use as the down payment. So I thought that was really smart. Maybe that's something everyone knows. I hadn't heard of that, but that was, I thought, really cool and another testament to just having an experienced agent on your side.
Anybody got a few questions? We got a little bit of time before we wrap up. So any questions?
Dakota, I do think I just kind of wanted to touch on that JV agreement structure because I think a lot of people run into stuff like that. So there was a profit split of 50-50. You purchased the house. What else did you guys like? How'd you write up that agreement? And was there anything else you were responsible for versus him?
Yeah, that would have been really smart. I didn't have any.
So nothing in writing, just kind of a handshake.
This was all done on a handshake, mostly just because I feel like I pride myself on having a pretty good judge of character on people. I've worked with them in the past. We've had hours and hours of conversations, just out on the front of a house, or, he calls me to update me on one thing, and then all of a sudden we're talking about his kids and his family and his wife. And, maybe it was naive. It probably was naive. You should probably definitely have everything in black and white. On this one, no, we just kind of had a handshake, and that's what it was. But it was one of those where I had the access to capital where he didn't, but he did also have that the deal. He had the deal, and he also had the license of the electrician, which I also knew was gonna need a new panel, right? So I saw the value in having both of us together, but as far as a structured outline, that would have been smart.
The nice thing is for you, you have low risk because you were in control of the deal the whole time. He could have.
Correct.
He's
Everything
the
was
one that
in
I
my
feel like
name.
had the most jeopardy. But I was just curious.
Correct.
Everyone sets it up different. Some people do handshakes, some people write it out, some people create it super formal. But yeah, Rachel and I have done that before. We've done JVs together, and we always write it out really detailed.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Rachel said, I even do it with my own sister.
I've got a question. I had a St.
Yeah,
Louis
what's up?
County inspection on a house, and the inspector really wanted to go in on a lockbox. And the way he was saying it was, I want to go in on a lockbox, so because I'm busy and I don't want to have a hassle. And I never ever let inspectors go in without me there, but I let this guy go in and he did it and found the two things we knew we were going to have to do anyway. It was already on our list and we got it passed easy. And I wanted to do that before, and I know some guys let them go in by without being there and some don't. What do you guys think? Should you be there when the inspector's there for an occupancy or not?
I've done it both ways. I've done it both ways. If it's an inspector I've used in the past and I have met them out there before and I know that they are reasonable individuals, I think his name is Dennis Presley, something like that for St. Louis County. He's an awesome guy. When we talk now, it's a lot more relaxed and casual. And he's like, "Oh, you got another one? Cool. Let me hop over there." And I was, do your thing, right? I think that's probably going to be, in my opinion, Scott could probably speak to this a lot better, but just, knowing the area, is it a notoriously rough area for inspections? Is the guy seem like a reasonable guy or gal, or, just kind of playing it by ear? But Scott would probably be the better source for that.
Yeah. My feeling on it is I always meet the inspector unless I just can't for some reason. I mean, but I'll move appointments to make sure that I'm there at the inspection because
He always locks up at the wrong time.
No. It's weird how that keeps happening.
Some municipalities are really low on inspectors.
Yeah.
And so, some just has one inspector. And so I'm thinking that we're kind of at an advantage as a landlord. If you make it clean, like you said, Dakota, make it look good, then, they're kind of just walking through and just kind of doing the minimum on them. At least that's what I'm seeing.
sorry, I fell off again. So well, the other thing that I was going to say is why I always meet the inspector out there. It's not just to push back on them for calling out stupid crap, which I do that plenty, but I make them point out exactly what they want done. And I never ever let them off with just being like, oh, you need to just fix this whole thing. No, that's not good enough. I want you to tell me exactly what I have to do to meet code, because that's their job, is making sure that this stuff meets code, even though they make up Florissant has their own city codes apparently or whatever. But I make them point out exactly what they want, and I'm not doing anything more than what they exactly point out to me to meet the requirement. So, and then that way too, I can communicate that to my contractor, because I'm not going to go in there and do it necessarily. So then I can tell my contractor exactly what needs to be done and no more.
That is a good point, Scott, because I have heard stories in the past where people get mad because one inspector comes in and they like give them stuff and then they think they do it. And then that same inspector or a different one comes back and they're like, no. And it's not because they're necessarily finding new things. It's because they didn't understand how the inspector wanted it done.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're not there, they'll literally just write something on a piece of paper and send it to you. And you have to somehow, meet their expectation, and you don't really know necessarily what they want.
Well,
Good question.
Good point.
Hey, I had a real quick question, if you don't mind. So I've got 2 units not too far from this property. And how long did it take the whole process for this guy? How long did it extend your closing?
it didn't extend the closing, but how many days after closing? Because the agent knew what to do, but how many days after closing did it take until inspection?
It was, I think, the next day. I think we had closing on one day and we couldn't get a re-inspection until literally the next day. So that's when we went with the escrow option and just said, if everything goes according to plan, this money comes back to me. If something does come up, you have this escrow allowance to fix it, and anything past this point is on your table. But after the fact that it was like, I think like the second or third reinspection, we were down to just like minuscule little things. So I think they felt comfortable in saying whatever comes up on this inspection isn't going to be over $1,000. So the escrow is going to cover it. But it didn't delay closing.
And it's Scott.
From the time that they made us, pull the permit, which was what was extra that added the time to the normal occupancy inspection process, was about 2 to 3 weeks is what it added.
Scott, would you, in your opinion, do the occupancy before you list it, like get that process started, or would you wait until it was listed and under contract?
That's an excellent question. I would not wait until it's under contract. But
Yeah.
either.
So that's kind of what I was needling at a little bit. So I always try to get the occupancy inspection ASAP because I didn't think in my mind's eye that contract would affect that process. So I thought I would lean in on that more aggressively out of the gate to try to head off nonsense from a zealous inspector.
Yes,
Yeah, then it
100%.
puts you back more time.
Yeah, if it's clean and you feel it's ready to list, it's ready for an occupancy inspection, at least the first one, and get that one knocked out, get whatever still.
I think Scott was going to say whatever items are needed so you can get that reinspection ordered right away. So it's not, you're not fighting that timeline for closing an occupancy.
Sure would like to know that guy's name.
It sounds like there's several rough ones over there. So, all right. Well, we are a little bit over time, so we are going to wrap up, but thank you all for joining us today. We'll be back same time, same place next week.
Thank
with
you.
Another case study. So, and we'll also have some time too. If you guys pop on a little early, we always kind of chat and can answer questions then too, or at the end. So, all right. Well, thank you all for your time, and hopefully I see you guys next week.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dakota.
See you guys.